All right, team, or could just be an individual watching this video, so I should just say welcome. This is the first lesson in diving into the specifics of the rocket launch script. We're going to have many videos on this. We're going to take this slowly, if you will, because there's a lot of complexities and nuances to this script. And I want to make sure I break them out because newsflash, I hate to tell you this, although that there will be a script that you can read top to bottom from word to word, if you do that, the chances of you failing are highly likely. I don't think this is the type of thing where you can say, hey, start at the first word and just read it down to the last word, and that'll get you to the end. I do believe that it can get you 80% of the way there. But the difference between failure and success is the magic that occurs in the last 20%. And good news is that that last 20% falls on your shoulders, meaning that you are the secret to unlocking that last 20%. Now, I'm not trying to be cute by saying that, but it's the truth. Because I have seen the script be read from top to bottom, and that doesn't cut it. It will leave something lacking, right? So we're going to walk through the sections of the script and how to use it. And along the way, we will also cover some lessons on how to unlock the, that magical 20%, if you will. So the rocket launch script. The reason why we have this is because it's essentially a guide. It's a map, if you will, that is going to lead us to 4 different sections of this call, okay? And every call is unique. Every call is different. I totally get that. Totally get that. However, every call should resemble these, in some way, shape, or form, should contain these 4 sections, all right? So all that we're going to do, we aren't even getting into the language because I don't want us to be focused on that yet. We're just going to talk about the sections, the goal for each section, and why the section is there and why it's important. Okay? So section number 1 is the agenda and upfront contract. What does that mean? What are we going to talk about here? Why is it important? Well, the way that I like to describe this section, the analogy that I like to use to describe it is, imagine if you were going into a movie at a movie theater that you had never seen the trailer for. Think about it. It's a weird scenario to be in. You don't know who's in it. You don't know the plot. You don't know what's going to is it a horror flick? Is it an action flick? Is it a comedy? You'll figure it out at some point in the movie how it's going to go. But it's kind of an awkward viewing situation, and it's like, man, it would just help if I had that first 2 minute, if I had some sort of 2-minute summary on how this thing is going to go. Hence, one of the reasons they put out a trailer, so you get context. And that's the thing here, is that I've seen too many calls over the years where people get on the phone and they just start presenting or talking, and there's no alignment between themselves and the prospect about what's going to happen on the call. Here's another reason why this is important. You're going to have prospects show up on these calls that come from all different points in marketing. They might have seen a webinar that's highly connected to the rocket launch program, and therefore can really warm somebody up for this conversation. You might have somebody who's showing up who didn't come from a webinar. They've been on our list for 2 years, and they're just wanting to figure out what to do next in their business. So if you remember the initial lesson, the number 1 goal, right, is to solve a problem. Now we can see how having that mindset will help us, that most people are just showing up like trying to figure out how to solve a problem. Now, whether they came from a webinar that really, talks about rocket launch or not, it doesn't matter. It honestly doesn't. What matters is if they have a problem that we can solve. So we're going to have an upfront contract or an agenda that we're going to say, here's what's going to happen on this call. Here are the points of this call. Here's the direction we're going to go. Here's what I'm going to do. Here's what you're going to do. And in the end, we might talk about this rocket launch program if it's a good fit. We'll put the language up there for that later. So, but that is the first section, if you will, the agenda. It sets the stage for the call so we know what's going on, so we know the direction that we can go, the direction that we're going to go in. All right? Section number 2 is our questioning strategy, and really what we might, another way to put it, might be pain discovery. I'm going to add this in here for us. And how about I take out strategy so I can get it all in one line? Questioning, pain discovery. So what's this section here? So as we get into this process, you're going to see that I think your average typical salesperson is going to use a process where they're going to start talking about the details and the ins and outs of the program that you're selling and the pain that, or not the pain, the program that you're selling and just the highlights of the service that we provide. And that is the wrong way to go about it. Why? Because our number one goal is to solve a problem. If our number one goal is to solve a problem, we've got to figure out what the problem is. The problem is the thing that is causing them pain. So the very first thing that we're going to do after we really set the agenda for the call is start asking questions that have to do with figuring out the pain. All right, you'll see this theme later on. Questions that have to do with pain don't sound like, oh, where are you located? How long you been doing that? Why'd you get into that business? Like, those aren't pain questions, right? We'll get into what are the right questions to ask, how to ask them, but if you find yourself setting the upfront contract and then immediately talking about all the bells and whistles of rocket launch and all the things we provide and the group coaching and the done-for-you service, that is going to get you into hot water quick because that person doesn't care about rocket launch. They could care less about it. And to be honest, when you see our language, we're going to be setting an agenda that is geared towards solving a problem. So why would we talk about rocket launch? We don't even know what the problem is yet. We got to figure out the problem. Got to figure out the problem. Questioning, pain discovery. Okay? Questioning strategy and pain discovery. That's the second piece. So the goal of the first section is for us to get alignment on how the call is going to go. All right? And it's also to create that 2-minute trailer so that they're really not surprised when something happens, right? You don't want your prospect to be going like, why are we talking about this? Why is this going on? Because we had already set the agenda. We've already told them that. Then when we get to the questioning strategy, what is the goal of this section? The goal is to identify pain. What is the main problem they have that is causing them pain? That is the main goal. That's what we're trying to achieve. We cannot leave a section unless we achieve the goal in the section. Right? So we're not going to start getting into questioning unless we set the agenda for the call and we get that alignment on what's going to happen in our time with our time together. We're not going to leave questioning and pain discovery unless we actually identify the pain that they're having. Okay? But when we do get the pain that we're having, okay, or when we do get the pain that they are having the pain. When we identify that, we can move on to the next piece. What piece is that? Oh, I changed this real quick. Hold on a second. I did this a certain way. Solution. You'll have to live with these edits and know that I'll change the script, that change I made later. So there you go. Solution. Part number 3. Solution. Let me tell you first what solution is not. Solution is not us telling them about what rocket launch is about. Some people might be watching this scratching their head. It's like, I thought, this is crazy. I'm supposed to be selling rocket launch, and every step of the way you're telling me to not talk about rocket launch. I promise you, this is the right way to go. They don't know about rocket launch. They don't care about rocket launch. What they do know is they have a pain, and they're looking for a solution. Rocket launch won't mean anything to them until we can show that we understand their pain and know how to solve it. Right? When the script becomes more clear, you will see how this comes to fruition. So agenda, questioning strategy, pain discovery, and then solution. So what are we doing here? We are basically at this point consulting. This is consultative selling. In this section here, we are using our consultative chops to tell these people, because of our expertise and strategy, our expertise and experience, that we know how to solve the pain that we got from here. We know how to do this. Why? Because we've been doing it for businesses for the past 9 years. We've trained over 500,000 professionals on how to set up these systems. The people who have your pain, because right, we're making that assumption about not generating enough leads. The people who have that pain, they don't have these things in place. They don't have this solution. So I'm just going to tell it to you, and we'll have language that talks about what that solution is. But you get that point? We're not talking about rocket launch here. We're not talking about it. You get into this and you're like, great, the rocket launch program did it. No. They don't care about rocket launch. We have to solve their problem. Could rocket launch solve their problem? Absolutely. But our goal on this is to solve their problem. And first we have to approach it with a big picture solution. We have to show them how the strategy, the playbook, the plan, that we understand their pain, and we have that playbook or plan to solve their pain. So we're going to speak about it in terms that doesn't necessarily have rocket launch branding around it. Okay? When we solve their problem, I'm going to take a drink. Give me a second. When we solve their problem and we demonstrate that we understand their pain, there is a level of trust that is going to form. And it can form, I promise you, it can form in 20 minutes on a phone call. It absolutely can. Then when we provide that solution and they believe it, they trust it, they're putting their faith in it, their hope in it, we've got this rapport that's going with them and they're really believing what's going on, then we can get to the final section, which is the invitation. What do we do here? We talk about rocket launch, okay? But there's some things that we need to make sure we do, and we will cover this in the invitation section, but we are then basically going to be saying, hey, you know that solution that we talked about to your problem? Good news. We actually have a program that provides that solution. And then the person's going to say, I know why you're talking to me about rocket launch, because rocket launch does the thing that you said is the solution to my problem. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does, right? So if we start talking about rocket launch here in the agenda, they're not going to care. They don't know what rocket launch is or why we should be talking about it, because we don't have any of their information, and they know it. They haven't given it to us. They haven't told us their story about why they have this problem, all right? We can't talk about rocket launch here. It's for the same reason I just said, okay? And if we start talking about rocket launch and the solution, we're just one step ahead. We're skipping a few pieces in connecting the dots because they want us to solely focus on the solution. Why? Because we told them we would on the agenda, and because the nature of this type of consultative selling call is solving a problem, providing some sort of remedy to pain. So these are the 4 sections of the rocket launch call. It's the 4 sections of the call that we are going to dissect, create language for, talking points. It's what we're going to break down so that you have a roadmap to get from, hey, Bob, this is Ben, is now still a good time, all the way down to, do you want to just go ahead and give me your card so we can process the payment? That's what we're going to try and do. But that is an outcome we want from this call if appropriate. The number one goal we are looking to achieve is to solve a problem. But if the majority of people who we talk to need help with generating leads in their business and setting up lead gen systems, then we know that rocket launch is that's an appropriate thing to sell because it is a solution to their problem. So these are the 4 sections. That's kind of it for this lesson. We are going to take a deep dive into each 4 of these sections, and I will show you why each section, why we have the language that we do in there, why everything is important, and all that jazz. And we will begin to craft this roadmap specifically. So Definitely go through each of these 4 videos in detail and really pay attention to the language that we have in there. And I will see you guys in the next lesson.